Hey everyone, welcome to Reflections, the wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We're excited to be coming to you live, courtesy of our broadcasting partner, moretalk.tv. And this week on the show, I'm honored to welcome Dr. Christine Page. Dr. Christine is known as a mystical physician, and she was immersed in spiritual mysteries from an early age. In her search for true healing, she has over 30 years of experience as a doctor and a homeopath. Receiving her degree from the Royal Free Medical School in London, England, she's now focused on education. As a gifted intuitive, mystic, and alchemist, she shares her insights and knowledge through teaching, soul readings, and of course, writing. She sees herself as a messenger and bridge builder between different worlds, whether this includes modalities of healthcare or different levels of consciousness. She is the author of 7 books, and she is best known for her book, The Frontiers of Health. And of course, she has out her latest book, The Healing Power of the Sacred Woman. Dr. Christine Page, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be talking with you today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And I know you have talked extensively about the mind-body connection and how it relates to health, which this is kind of a hallmark of the Edgar Cayce readings. But I'm curious personally, how did you first get introduced to the Edgar Cayce readings in the ARE?
Well, I was brought up in London, as you can hear from my accent, and I was brought up with some of the colleges of psychic studies, of spiritual association. And so Edgar Cayce certainly was introduced to me from a very early age. And I admired the work that, and the fountain of work, the amount of work that was available, the teachings. And as I went on into medicine myself and then complementary medicine, I obviously became very interested in what he had said about certain conditions and what treatments, especially those treatments, of course, that were more natural to what I was being offered as a doctor. So I knew about Edgar Cayce very early on, and then had the privilege of going to some of the conferences that were run by the ARE back in the 80s. And then really I said, yes, I've come home. So it's very important to me, and I'm looking forward to being back in Virginia Beach again.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to having you back in Virginia Beach. And I know as a doctor, you have started looking more deeply into the causative factors of disease. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, as a doctor of now 35 years, I was, of course, thinking that when I came out of medical school, I had all the answers. I thought everybody had taught me everything, but very little had anything to do with the spirit or even the emotions of an individual. And it was that there was something chemically wrong, or something had happened within the physical element of the body that had actually caused the illness. And I went into general practice after a while, and which allowed me to see people who had a variety of illnesses. And I recognized that there were similarities to the personality of a certain illness, which I wouldn't have got to if I had seen the same illness over and over again. So I would see someone with backache, and I would hear them talk about, well, I don't feel supported, and people let me down. And then I would hear someone with heart disease, and they would say, oh, I feel stuck, but I have to keep working because I've got a pension, I've got children to look after. And I thought, wow, there's real similarities between personality types, and especially the emotional friction that was being caused by certain circumstances to that personality type and the illness. And that's really what I started to collate, was the mind-body connection. And I put that into my first book, Frontiers of Health. I wrote down as many illnesses as I could and related them to the what was going on in the personality. But at the same time, I also saw there was a connection between each chakra, and I was introduced to chakras at a very early age. And I saw that, let's say, the throat chakra was related to self-expression, and that when someone had problems in their throat or their lungs, they often were unable to express something. So I also saw that there was a spiritual component about what was this soul trying to say, what was going on a deeper level when someone had a problem around their throat. So really, I started and continue to build my own dictionary or encyclopedia of work around this mind-body-spirit connection. And of course, use people like Edgar Cayce to say, here's a similarity, or here's some learning that I can integrate into my work to bring it into more wholeness.
Right. Wow, that's wonderful. And what would you say is one of the contributing reasons as to why people are not really in tune with the mind body connection or how their chakras can be influencing their health?
Um, when I wrote the book Frontiers of Health 20 odd years ago, I thought that by now we're here in the 2014, everybody would be thinking about this. In fact, I think we've gone in the opposite direction. Part of that is due to technology, that really people rely so much on technology to give the answers. When I was a medical student, we had to make the diagnosis. It was 65% was by listening to the patient. It was about 15% was by feeling and touching the patient, examining them, and only 10% was tests. Now it's completely the other way around. Nobody listens,
Right.
nobody touches, and it's like 95% tests and 5% of the rest. And
Right.
that's as much, my own country of England as it is here. That people will say the first person they speak to is the radiologist who says, take some clothes off so we can take an x ray or do an
Right.
MRI. And part of that, unfortunately, is defensive medicine, that the doctors have now got so much insurance to defend against the fact they might miss something. But in all honesty, I think it's a disservice both to the patient and to the doctor, because I don't think I missed something when I was a good diagnostician. And that the challenge for me is that doctors aren't trained to be diagnosticians, they're trained to be able to read an x ray. And there are so many protocols now that if a patient has this, you have to follow this path. It doesn't allow for anything that might be a little bit of an anomaly. And I want to say that people are anomalies. People don't come in with a label saying, I'm having a heart attack.
Right.
Sometimes the pain is in their jaw, sometimes it's in their stomach. And I feel that we're missing out. So tests are done because we don't allow for the unusual. So you almost have to scan everything to make sure you don't miss anything. And just
Right.
finally, I want to say is that patients are demanding that they want a pill for everything that happens to them. And they're being shown on television where there is a pill for everything and you never have to suffer. So that the patient is being told, you just have to take this tablet and you don't have to consider that there might be a deeper reasoning behind this illness. And so, unfortunately, we have patients come into hospital very quickly. They quickly have a treatment or something, and they're sent out very quickly back in to the same destructive patterning that has caused their illness. But nobody
Right.
tells them that. So, for me, when people used to stay in hospital for much longer periods of time, they got a chance to think about their life. They got a chance to maybe talk to other people and say, well, maybe it's the stress of my life or the way I'm living it that's causing the problem. And maybe the illness is giving me an opportunity to change. But we don't do that. We just say, take this, have this operation, and you just can go back to that same destructive pattern that's causing you the illness in the first place and never change anything at all.
Right. And what does it mean to you to be a homeopath, and how has it kind of influenced you on a personal level?
Yeah, I went into homeopathy because I love the practice. First of all, it has a lot of self discovery, and you have to be a detective to be a good homeopath. And I'm a bit of a detective. I like to really listen to someone, hear what they're saying, see what they're not saying. And I think homeopathy, the skill of homeopathy is to be able to be intuitive to what's not being said, to really get to the focus of what's the source of this person's issue here. And that's why I love homeopathy. The other side of it's one of the deepest energetic treatments, so that homeopathy works best when there is less baggage in the way, a less emotional baggage. What we always say is homeopathy works best on children and animals because they've not got all these defenses in place. And what I love about homeopathy, it really shifts people very quickly. And
Right.
even sometimes when they don't want to be shifted, well, they may have some resistance, it will shift them. But
Right.
homeopathy is one of the most holistic of all the practices. And it very much, depending on what dosage we use or potency, we can work with something very physical or something very spiritual. And homeopathy covers that whole field.
Right. And I love the way you talk about illness. And You mentioned that illness is kind of an opportunity, a chance to reflect and find out what could be going on in my life that could be contributing to this physical illness. Can you elaborate a little more about this opportunity of illness?
Absolutely. And that I want, it's not about guilt, it's not about blame. It's like, wow, what a chance this is. I like to see it like a door opening. And it's really saying, wow, here's an opportunity. Do you want to walk through that door? Do you want to change anything in your life? And
Right.
I try to say that illness is no different from maybe getting divorced or being made redundant or even someone dying in your life. These, what we call crises, these times of chaos, are actually opportunities to walk into the mystery of our lives, to change things that we don't like anymore. And I hope that people, when they get divorced, they say, well, maybe I need to change a few things. Otherwise, they just are on their sixth partner and wondering why nothing changes. And it's really ridiculous to say keep doing the same thing if you keep getting divorced. Why would we not say if you're getting sick? Why wouldn't that be a great chance to say, is there anything in my life that's happening, either emotionally or physically, that may be saying maybe if I stop doing that, things would be different? And that's what I see. And what I like to say is, you'll still will get better. It doesn't mean that if you don't listen to the message or you don't take the opportunity, you won't get better. But what I see is that these opportunities, illness is a chance to change your consciousness, to change the way in which you've been living your life, to expand yourself. And why not take that opportunity and run with it?
Right. Absolutely. And do you find that there's something that you could pinpoint that's creating a blockage as to why people are so resistant to this?
Um, I think partly, as I was saying, is that we are a slightly lazy society that kind of wants to say that give me a pill or just do something because I don't want to have to change at a deeper level.
Right.
So much of what we're about is, you might say to someone, oh, I don't know, it might not be about illness. It might be, why don't you just do that little thing? And they'll say, oh, that's too much to work off for. I don't want that.
Right.
Uh, and I'm amazed. I also work with intuition, and I will say to someone, all you have to do is just that little thing. And they go, oh, yeah, lots of people have told me that, but I'm not going to do it. And the crazy part is that we would rather stay in a painful and destructive situation than we would change. And what I've
Right.
worked with a lot of change in my life in terms of it's something I've taught. And I know that unless what we say is if the pain of change is greater than the pain of staying where you are, you're not going to change. So if
Right.
you have a fear of insecurity, but hey, staying in this bad job that you hate gives you security, you'll stay in that bad job. And so
Right.
what you have to do is to make the change more pleasurable than where you are. And that takes effort. Sometimes people, when they have a life-threatening illness and they're facing the end, they will change. But many a time, people will just try and find the easy solution, and that's such a sadness to me. Sometimes we have to hit the wall before we'll accept that where we are is not working for us. So it's a part of human nature. It's like the person who keeps saying, well, he only hits me 3 times a week. I mean, that's much better than it was. You know,
Right.
it's like what you're used to probably doesn't sound too bad to you, but it sounds awful to everybody else. Uh, we are very difficult to adapt, and I've spent a lot of time trying to say to people, just try it out for a little bit. Just step a little bit away from your journey and see if you would prefer this way. And they are resistant, like we all are.
Right. Absolutely. And you have your most recent book, The Healing Power of the Sacred Woman. What was it like writing this book for you? What was the process like?
Well, having written a number of books on intuition and health before, I kind of started this book writing it for women, not because I don't think men need a book, but I did feel that I had more knowledge about women because I'm one myself. And
Right.
I like to say that I know what it's like to have progesterone and estrogen going through my system. but I've got no idea what it would be like to have testosterone going through 24/7. So I kind of knew what it was like to be me. And it was also set it up was that I have a very strong idea about personality types, especially around cancer, because I've worked a lot with cancer patients. And one of the things about cancer is that 85% of people who have cancer are nice people. And it's often the hardest thing for them is to not be nice.
Right.
They have difficulty expressing their emotions, especially their anger, and they're always making excuses for everybody else. Everybody
Right.
else, they have to take care of them. And so I was watching this program, and some woman was being described as having breast cancer. And the interviewer was saying, well, fancy them having breast cancer. They're such a nice person. And I wanted to scream at the television, that's the problem. They're too darn nice.
Right.
And so I wrote this book, and I wrote it about women's illnesses, but also women's health and spirituality and their sacredness, and how women perhaps should be listening to themselves a little bit more and less about what everybody else needs. And I
Right.
finished the book, and 2 weeks after finishing the book, I developed a breast lump, and it was diagnosed as cancer. And I went, darn it, I'm too darn nice.
Wow.
So I did change some things in my own personality, and as I was having the radiotherapy, I actually rewrote sections of the book so I could be much more empathic, maybe, and more realistic to the situation. And
Right.
I have to say that I'm well now. I don't have any problems, but I have found that having my own cancer has helped me be more sympathetic and more open to other people's cancer. And I really felt that the cancer wrote the book for me to help me along the way.
Right. So you had your own opportunity of illness, which is
I
a,
really
a
did.
blessing in a sense.
Yeah, oh, I saw it as that. And when I got, when I developed the cancer, my message to myself was, wow, my soul really loves me because it developed cancer. And
Right.
I know that might be difficult thing for people to understand. But I feel that when we become a victim to what goes on in our life, whether it's illness or as I say, a divorce or someone dying, if we then say, "Oh, it's all happening against me," it's very hard to get well, or it's very
Right.
hard to make different choices. And so what I say is, don't be a victim to what happens to you. And therefore I never got into the language that said, oh, I'm being attacked, or I'm suffering from cancer, or I'm a cancer survivor. It just didn't make sense to me. Cancer, some part of me had developed the cancer in order for me to change some of my patterns, and
Right.
therefore I wasn't willing to put this as an external enemy. I was more willing to say, okay, I'm going to use my surgeon to get rid of the cancer, but I'm also going to take it as an opportunity.
Right. Wow. How refreshing and inspiring. Thank you for sharing that.
Uh,
And we're going to
Thank you.
take a quick commercial break here, Christine, but we'll be right back to talk more about your most recent book here on Reflections, The Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. And welcome back to Reflections, The Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Today on the show, we have Dr. Christine Page, and we're talking about her most recent book. Christine, what in your book, you found a connection between the beliefs about womanhood and how it is actually affecting the woman's state of health. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, over the years of having looked at holistic health and knowing there is a connection between our beliefs and how illness may appear and which particular illnesses may appear, we look at people like Bruce Lipton's work or Candace Pert's work, which is really saying is if we change our perceptions, we can actually change the way the DNA expresses itself, or even whether the DNA does express itself or the genes. And
Right.
so I really focused on that was what are the beliefs that I carry as a woman that may be affecting the way I live my life and certainly my health. And so I looked and said, okay, I have particular beliefs about the way my body looks, and whether or not I'm feminine enough, and whether or not I'm still a woman if I haven't had children. These are very general beliefs. But then I looked at my family and I thought, okay, my mother told me this as a woman. Women must compromise, women must take care of others. And she was told that by her mother. And so I realized there were ancestral beliefs, which are really important. And then I realized, well, how far back do we have to go before we have maybe much more healthy beliefs about being a woman? And so I had to go back to the time when the patriarchy came into being. And I thought, well, that was about 3,500 years ago. So the last time that we had a different way of looking at ourselves was about 3,000 years ago. And I realized that there's very few role models, therefore, to say, what is it to be a healthy woman? We are bombarded with images as we go out of a supermarket of how I should look, how I should be sexually, how should I be in bed, how should I talk. And we also have a lot of images about being a successful woman. But what I'm recognizing that a lot of the successes of femininity at the moment and the female are related to being more like a mini man, taking on some of the powers of being a masculine quality, being more assertive, more stepping up. And these are masculine qualities, not necessarily feminine. And I'm
Right.
saying that not because I'm saying that women aren't feminine, but what is it to be feminine? What are
Right.
the what are the role models? What are the gifts that it is to be feminine? Where is my power? And that was when I started digging deeper and deeper into the mythology and the history of all of this. And I realized that the one thing that has never changed or has not changed for millions of years that might be a guide to me is actually my body. And that for millions of years, women have had breasts, they've had uteruses, they've had vaginas. That hasn't shifted. So maybe some part of what we are can be found by looking at the physiology and the anatomy of a woman. And that really took me to the place of, what does every woman do? And I thought, well, okay, does every woman have children? And the fact of the matter is, now we have across the world 40% of women do not have children at the age of 40. So actually being a mother is not necessary an essential of being a woman. I'm saying it's a gift of being a woman, but not necessarily what makes her a woman. And
Right.
what I realized that the one thing that every woman does is have a menstrual cycle, have a moon period, a moon cycle. And I thought, well, that is never talked about. I have to, you may not know, but women don't talk about this.
Right.
You know, and as I've listened to more and more women, they may talk about their first period. Sometimes it was a good experience, sometimes it was a shameful one. But then for 35 years, where they continue this every month, nobody talks about it. And I think, wow, what does any of us do for 35 years that we don't talk about? If you're married for 35 years, everybody goes, oh, congratulations. But nobody says, oh, well done, you did this for 35 years. So I realized that this is what's been taken out of the belief system. This is what's been taken out. And it's often been taken out, unfortunately, in a very shameful way, that the
Right.
period is a time of uncleanliness and shame, and you better not get pregnant. So that's a lot of women got that message. And of course, now we have birth control. It's taken a little bit of that away. But the fact is that women are almost going to the extent, which I hear around the world, of saying, well, I'm just not going to have a period at all. I'll have an injection. I'll put a patch on. I'm even hearing women choosing to have their uterus taken out completely so they're not inconvenienced by their period.
Oh
So
wow.
we've gone from, maybe this is an important thing in women, to this is really a pretty irrelevant thing, especially if you don't want children. And just really coming round to a circle on this, I'm now saying to women, actually, whether you're still menstruating or not, actually having a monthly cycle is the very thing that's keeping humanity going. And there are three parts to this. One part is the fact is the bleed itself creates a purification, a release, a getting rid of. And that if we do not cleanse the earth, we do not have a soil ready for new growth. And so I say it's like being a gardener that I am, that if I'm going to plant new seeds, I would never try and plant them in old earth. I would dig out the old roots, I would clean out some of the weeds, but that a woman who doesn't understand this is every month she's trying to plant new ideas, new consciousness into old soil and expecting to get something different.
Right.
So just to complete on that, I'm really saying is women bring in new consciousness every month. They give birth every month, and they are inherently being asked to do this by cleaning out the old soil during the time of the period, and then being open to what's new coming in at the end of the period. And that's what I'm wanting to share with women primarily, that this is an important role for them.
And Christine, you talked a lot about a couple reasons as to why you chose to concentrate your research on women. Why exactly was that your main focus for this new book?
You know, I'd written a book before, and it was about the return of the Great Mother around the time of 2012. And it is true that we have entered into a new state of consciousness for the planet. And many of us would be talking about a new state of consciousness for the next 26,000 years of the planet. And it really is women who give birth to new consciousness. And where I'm not in any way denying the power of the masculine or the power of men, I feel that women are leading the way for this. But I feel that what we have been led to believe, that leading the way is becoming, taking a leadership, becoming a CEO, becoming a CFO. I'm very impressed by the women who are now in leadership roles in the corporate world. But I'm feeling that we are not using half of what we are to be able to be true leaders. And part of that is that during this time of cleansing that I'm talking about, we reach a stage once we get through the menopause, especially when a woman is no longer defining herself purely from what her own ego needs, that she is able to make decisions based on what is best for the community, what is best for the future, the next 7 generations. And in every ancient culture, they would choose grandmothers. And this, again, is not women who have necessarily got grandchildren, but what they defined as elders or wise women who had reached a stage in their own spiritual development when they could make detached and clear and compassionate decisions for the whole community. And I see that is the way that we now need to go. And what was always said is that the reason they would pick these women is that only women who had reached that stage knew what was worth fighting for.
Right.
And I would love to see these women being the ones who decide whether to go to war or not. And
Right.
that it wasn't based on an ego, it wasn't based on we want to possess, we want to destroy. It's what is the best for the world? What is the best for the future generations? I would feel the world would change dramatically if decisions were made for that, and not just for my country or my nation or my tribe. What's best for us all?
Right.
And they also would say that only women know what it's like to nurture a child at her breast and then have to bury that child. And
Right.
therefore, decisions need to be made by women. So there's two things there. I would say one is women give birth to consciousness, but also women can have the vision to be able to see much further ahead and make decisions for the greater good.
Absolutely. And do you see personally us moving in a more of a direction where we recognize and acknowledge and really honor the sacred feminine, not just on a personal level, but on a global scale?
I do. I see it coming. Uh, I've done a number of workshops and worked with a lot of women, and I have to say I'm saddened to see how women, one, don't value themselves, don't have a respect for their bodies, and they don't have the belief that they are the one that is the high priestess, or that anybody coming towards them should be respectful of them. So
Right.
I'm saying women don't understand that they should demand respect, and that respect should come not from a place of I'm a woman, you're a man. It's like everybody should be respected, consider the lilies of the field. It's as if, well, everybody is valued, and the lily is as important as the human, and women are very low on the level of respect in their own minds. And when
Right.
I say to a woman, he or she, and it can be a she as well, nobody should be speaking to you like that. They go, oh, shouldn't they? It's like, no, that isn't okay. I think men have greater degrees of self-respect than women do. And so just to take women to the level of saying, that is the sacred feminine. It's not about what you do or how much you earn. It's about, do you even know that that someone talking down to you is not okay, let
Right.
alone abuse, sexual abuse or physical abuse. And when I look at this, Brent, one would like to say, wow, things are really changing dramatically. But I also say, when I look at the levels of abuse in the world and in our own country, let's not look at any other country, that one in, what is it, every 18 minutes a woman is being physically abused in this country. That,
Right.
that the children, one in four children are being abused. This is not okay. So I think we have a long way to go. And I'm not going to say we're not getting there, but the success is seen as lowering those levels of abuse.
Right.
Success is seen as people just respecting each other, but it won't come unless women recognize that it's okay to say no. It's
Right.
okay to say this is not appropriate. And women have this unending need to change everybody. I laugh at everybody because women are always trying to change everybody. Uh, when I've learned is that men just like the package they bought, So we have a problem there where women are always looking for the potential of someone, so that when they are abused or disrespected, they'll say, oh, never mind, he'll be better tomorrow.
Right.
Whereas they're not always willing to face the reality that this person may never change. And really, it's not up to them to change anybody. They have to deal with what's in front of them now.
Absolutely. And is there any practical advice that you would give a woman of any age, whether young teen or later in her years, about how to kind of cultivate a stronger sense of self-worth, a better way to honor themselves?
So I vote, starting with self-respect. Unfortunately, we have to almost say from the very moment a child is born that nobody should touch your body unless you give permission. I'm just saying is, as a child, to know that your body is sacred, is beautiful, is precious, and that if it doesn't feel right, don't let someone touch it. But as we grow older, it's about how we treat each other, uh, and feeling that if someone says something that doesn't feel right, again, to be able to say, don't talk to me like that. Not, oh, maybe they're having a difficult day, or maybe I shouldn't say anything. The concept of loving yourself and respecting yourself enough to say, this is not appropriate in around me, do not say this, it will be very important. And if I had children, these children are watching the parents and they're watching the grandparents, that if we are going to change the world, we have to do it from the level of the parents or the adults, that a child learns from the role models. And so if we want to show self-esteem and self-worth and self-respect, we have to act it out. And good self-confidence doesn't come from brashness. It comes from actually loving yourself and liking yourself just as you are. And so much of our society is based on being better, being different, changing your body. And so, again, if we can say, actually, my body is beautiful just as it is, that would be a great start.
Right. Absolutely. And what changes do you see possible if women are able to reconnect to this sacred identity and not only incorporate on a personal level, but as we start to see it filter out into society, what sort of changes do you see for the future?
Certainly, my first hope would be far lowering levels of abuse so there's not there. I would see us treating each other with greater respect, not just in a family setting, but also across the world, so that it is often been women who have brought peace to a country because they start talking a common language. A woman has, and integral part of her that loves sharing, connecting. Women are constantly trying to connect. And in that connection, there's a sense of unity, a sense of oneness. So that's why I always say that when you go to a ladies' toilets, women are always talking. Whereas I'm sure if you went to a man's toilet, nobody talks. But
Right.
women will continue conversations and it will all be about, oh, I like what you're wearing. I like we're always trying to find a common theme. And in a masculine world, we're trying to respect people who's different. So I'm saying is, I think we're coming to a place where we want that community. We want that sense of unity across the world. And I see that coming. I'd also see that men and women seeing each other as equal. It's not about one being lesser. Each has a special role. And in ancient times, it was women who ran the spiritual rituals. It was the women who were the priests or the priestesses, because it was understood that women could reach levels of inspiration and intuition that men couldn't always. And I feel that it's not threatening men to say, we're going to do this, you do this. Honestly, I think that we can all honor each other about what the roles are that we play. Men are much more comfortable. If I said, please, can you go and do this? Men are more able to carry out a plan because women do not have that sort of thinking necessarily. So I'm saying we don't have to be um, competing. We can actually work in beautiful harmony. And eventually, of course, that will bring harmony to our own masculine and feminine. But I'm saying at this present time, it's about women taking a different role and one that has much more to do with the cycles of life rather than seeing everything as exactly the same.
Right. That's wonderful. Thank you. We're going to take another quick commercial break here on Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce, and we'll be right back with more from Dr. Christine Page. And welcome back to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Today on the show, we're talking with Dr. Christine Page, and we're diving deep into the sacred feminine. Christine, what was it like going through medical school, pardon me, and being raised amongst traditional healers and having that background? What was that like for you? Was it difficult, or did it really enrich your experience?
Of course, at the time, you think everybody does this. And I mean, anybody who's listening will understand that I would go and with my mother and listen to maybe someone channeling someone from Egypt. And I would think everybody did that on a Saturday. I thought everybody listened to 5,000-year-old Egyptians. And I would say, well, that man makes sense, you know, and I would often say they made more sense than my teachers did. So, well, hey, whatever. And I think having such open parents, parents who they didn't, they said, you know, take something that you hear into your heart. If it feels good, hold it. If not, let it go. So I think my parents were both into very much inquiring and learning, and but without dogma. And I was very fortunate to have that, I realize in retrospect. And so that sort of inquiring mind, that being able to go into different esoteric areas was fantastic for me. I still do it. I love that exploration. And listening to other people's points of view from different perspectives, that's fantastic. My other challenge was that I've always been intuitive and I always could see people's energy. I didn't understand it as a child, but it was almost like I thought everybody could see different levels of a person's energy field. And
Right.
my problem was that when someone felt sad or when someone felt distressed, I would take that distress on because I didn't have any boundaries. So that when someone was suffering, I suffered. And I thought, why is nobody else noticing this? uh, and later on, I would take on that suffering, and the only way I coped with it was to faint. So I fainted away to get away from it. And
Oh,
in my
wow.
teenage years, I would, you know, put my hands over my eyes and my ears, fingers in my ears, whenever we went to a film or anybody talked about anything where someone was suffering, because I could almost feel myself fainting. And so
Right.
the irony was, of course, that when it came to choosing a career, I kind of went out there and said, now, where shall I go where nobody suffers? Like, become a doctor. Oh, very clever. And of course, I had to learn that I couldn't faint. And I see that as a soul journey that really, very quickly, my consultants weren't happy with me if I fainted. So I had to learn to develop boundaries. I put my white coat on. I placed some distance between myself and my patient. And I think that it was a tremendous training for me not to take everything on myself. I
Right.
love doing medicine. I love learning about people. I love feeling into what was going on, but I had to not take it on. There came a point in my life when I became so detached that I didn't care about anybody, that I'd put too many boundaries up. And I knew that when that happened, I had to stop my job because I knew that when I didn't care, it wasn't much good doing what I did. And when I actually gave up my practice, I actually allowed my intuition to become stronger. And now I can still feel into people's energies, but not take it on so much. So, that was really the biggest challenge for me, which was learning how to let people have their experience, have their emotions, and not feel responsible for it.
Right. That's great. And from coming from a male perspective, what would you say to the males of the world about how to embrace and work with the sacred feminine? Because it's well known amongst esoteric communities that a human soul is very much a mixture of masculine and feminine energy. So, for a male who's struggling to get in touch with their inner feminine and work with these ideas, what would you recommend to them?
So let me say it in two different ways. One is, as a woman, let's just talk woman to man. I don't want you to develop your feminine. I want me to I want you to develop your masculine and
Right.
allow me to develop my feminine. I say that in all truth because we have a lot of women now who there's no room for their feminine because their man is all feminine and they
Right.
take on
Right.
the masculine role. So we've gone to the opposite extreme. Um, so in all truth, I love my husband being having a feminine side, but I need him to be a strong masculine.
Right.
And that to me invokes his feminine, where I need him to be sensitive to me. So what do women look for? They look for someone who will listen to them, but they don't need someone who fixes them, which is
Right.
the annoying part of that, of the masculine. But that can be as difficult for, many women try to fix other women. So I'm saying as a feminine energy for a masculine is to be able to sit and listen and hold and not try and fix. And I think that's really hard for a man. But many men are able to do that. I think we as women, we love it when we can share things around the home, especially the caring of children. But again, we want our man to not get too lost in that because we also know that if a man is now at home looking after the children, his testosterone levels fall dramatically. And he actually
Right.
starts to develop more prolactin, which is a feminine energy. So there's a balance point here.
Right.
I think that I think the fear for men or for the masculine, and I'll talk about my own masculine, is that the masculine wants to organize. Excuse me. It wants to organize, it wants to create structure. The feminine wants chaos. And I think for whether we're males or females, it's our masculine that will hold on to structure when it really just needs to fall into chaos. For a woman or her feminine, chaos is the place of the great mystery. When we don't know the answers, when we give up having a structure, many of us, our masculine is fearful and it says, oh my God, I don't want to fall into that chaos. It'd be terrifying. But actually, when you fall into mystery, you become more powerful. You become
Right.
more intuitive. You let things happen that are way outside what your brain could ever imagine. So, as a male getting in touch with the feminine, I would say have times where you actually allow yourself not to know, not to be uncomfortable in the unknown, to let things happen without trying to fix them and put them back to right, and recognize that that's the relationship we're all having with the Great Mother, which is, can I surrender to her? can I allow her to support me and be to supported by? And I think for the masculine is often a fear of annihilation when he surrenders, when truly I want to say, no, you're not going to get annihilated, you're going to be empowered. So I hope that helps a little bit along that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a powerful message. Thank you. And as each generation seems to be vastly different from the one prior to it, what can we teach our daughters and our granddaughters about honoring their body?
As I said, if we could, first of all, we are the role models. So what they watch, that's how they learn, is watching. So even if we say something, but if we do something different, they're going to be watching more than listening. So
Right.
first of all, I'd say that. I was listening to a program that was talking about naming the parts of the body. And they were saying is actually name it for what it is. Don't give it a pet name. Don't give it a made up name. They said because that actually causes almost more shame of the body than just calling it what it is.
Right.
And they've done a lot of studies in the Netherlands, and the Dutch are much more comfortable with their bodies. And they'd seen that there were far less problems with abuse, etc., than when we actually just call it for what it is and be comfortable with it. So that's what I would do. And I would also say that for a child to see that her body is just perfect as it is, and male or female. Unfortunately, we have so many young people who are wanting, especially young women, for their graduation gift. They want to have their breasts either made bigger or smaller. And, we're not going to change that. That's the theme of today. Just as, there are other things that youngsters are doing to their bodies and saying this makes it more beautiful. And I have to say, I did things in my youth to do that. But I think the more that the parents can show them that they love their body as it is, the better. And I think, many of us, even whatever age you are, we have insecurities around our body. But treating it with love and respect is a really precious thing. And I have to say, for a masculine to respect the feminine body, not call it out or give names to it, or, in a negative way, to tell their wife how beautiful they look. Um, and likewise, just, to give the same compliment back to the masculine. So it's very much, I think I'm saying, is about how you see your parents are with their own bodies, how they treat each other with respect, and whether or not they give compliments. Compliments are so important.
Absolutely.
Because
Couldn't
often
agree
we're
more.
much more aware of the criticism than we are the
Yeah,
compliment.
absolutely. And that was
Yes.
so big with the Edgar Cayce readings was just to speak a kind word every day and just make a point. That's it's such a small thing, but it sends out such a huge ripple effect of positivity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm so saddened, Brent, when I hear people speak about, I say, well, who complimented you, or who gave you praise? And they go, nobody. And I think, oh, as you said, just one thing a day doesn't take
Hmm.
much. And it only shows the insecurity in that person that they can't give one piece of praise because they're so lacking it themselves.
Right, absolutely. And in writing your latest book, what is your hope that the readers and the listeners of this show get from your message?
Well, I would like to say that there are so many things that we've been taught that either are not true or have distorted our truth. As I say, for women, I would like you to consider that maybe the first 3 days of your period, or if you're like me, postmenopause, or the first 3 days of the dark moon, are precious times. They're valuable times. They're times where you can both let go of things that you're ready to let go of, everybody else's emotions, times to nurture yourselves, and times to be more inspired and see these times as a holiday, a little holiday when you don't cook for anybody and you take time for you rather than something that's negative. And I'm only saying that that sets up a different ritual. So every month you're looking forward to those 3 days rather than seeing them as something that just is bland like the rest of the rest of the month. I'd also say to women to recognize that they are special, that they have a deep connection to the earth, and that for both men and women, uh, 3,000 years ago, we got cut off from what we call the dragon energy in the earth. And so there's a lot of mythology about killing the dragon or killing the serpent. And
Oh,
when
yeah.
that happened, we got cut off from our power. And to me, it was a very, very conscious decision by the patriarchy to say, let's cut them off from the earth. Let's disconnect them from that power of the earth, because when we do that, we have their power. And many of the problems that we see around the solar plexus, which is all about self-worth and self-identity, has come because we got disconnected from the earth. And so we're desperately trying to create power or sense of self from our outer experiences, instead of just feeling, oh, well, I know I belong to this earth because that's where I came into when I was born. So I would love to see us all reconnect to the earth in a more powerful and loving way, but not just how we love the earth, but how the earth loves us. And I think
Right.
mankind doesn't understand that when you love the earth in the way that you allow it to embrace you, and you listen to the beauty of the birds around you, or you see the beauty of the plants, that actually the earth comes back and meets you and gives you abundance. So
Right.
it's, I would love to reconnect people to how they are. And in ancient cultures, when a baby was born, they would take the placenta and bury it into the earth, and they would put a tree on top of that placenta. And what they were really doing was planting the baby in the earth and
Right.
saying, this is your new mother. This is who will keep you safe. This is who will feed you. And then when you went through puberty, that you had another tree planted, and then you had the true trees represented the doorway to which you were now going to lead your life. And I just think some of these mythologies or some of these rituals were lost. And I meet so many people, and unfortunately many who are spiritual, who are not connected to the earth. They've never come here. They're
Right.
still wandering around up here. and and we've been told so much about, that heaven is up here, or the good things are up here. And I'm telling everybody, the good things are underneath your feet. And that
Right.
the church knows this. That's why I say that the Pope wears a skirt, why priests wear skirts, why judges wear skirts. It's, they all know that the power is in the earth. It's not above your head.
Right. Wow. I like that. What a powerful message. Thank you for sharing those practices as well. That's very inspiring.
Good.
And last, I wanted to touch on the conference that you'll be doing in Virginia Beach, and it's entitled Women's Healing from the Inside Out, Merging s- m- body, soul for health, wisdom, and vitality. And can you tell us a little bit about what conference attendees can expect from this conference?
Oh, this is a great conference, and I'm so pleased the ARE had the courage to put it on, because it is a women's conference. Uh, we are inviting women to come from all ages. There's certainly no limits to this. But this is really, I want to share on the Friday evening. I'll be giving a talk with some visual imagery, with some exercises. It's a 2-hour period. But I want to show this history that I've been sharing with you today, some of the mythology, some of the things that we know about being a woman, but maybe they've just got a bit distorted. So that will be on the evening. I'm hoping to give that sort of background, that structure to the rest of the time. Then we have some wonderful other speakers coming in to do some practices. On the Saturday, I'm going to be running a one-day workshop, which will be very much experiential. It's going to be about meeting your ancestors, about meeting your body, about how do we get rid of energy we don't want anymore, about how to connect to our heart again, to the earth again. And this is all going to be fitted into one day. And we're going to use music, because music allows us to go deeper than if we're thinking. So I'm really asking those of you who will attend, maybe get the thought that you might even be lying on the ground, or at least propped up against a wall if you can go there. Because when we're sitting in a chair, our brain tends to be very active. But when we're
Right.
lying on the ground, our brain switches off a little bit, like going to sleep. So come prepared to have some music flow through you, to allow the music to take you to places that maybe weren't taken, you haven't gone to for a while. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be giving you, hopefully at the end, you'll get some rituals that you can use at home, practical advice, and the ability to go home and share this with your girlfriends, with your partner, your men in your life, and with your children and grandchildren, so that we can start a whole new way of being as a woman.
Wow, wonderful. Dr. Christine Page, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. Your message is truly an inspiring one that's so needed at this time. And from this one male, I truly appreciate you sharing all your wisdom about the sacred feminine. It helps me personally, and I hope it helps everyone else out there.
Thank you so much, Brent. It's been such a fantastic thing to be with you. You're a great interviewer. Thank you.
Dr. Christine Page, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I hope everyone enjoyed my interview with Dr. Christine Page. Dr. Page is a featured speaker at the upcoming ARE conference here in Virginia Beach, and this is entitled Women's Healing from the Inside Out, Merging Body and Soul for Health, Wisdom, and Vitality. This is from June 6th through the 8th, and you can register for this and other conferences at the ARE here in Virginia Beach by visiting edgarcayce.org/conferences. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Page, you can visit her personal website at christinepage.com. On behalf of everyone here at the Association for Research and Enlightenment and our broadcasting partner, moretalk.tv, I'm your host, Brenton Bickerstaff, reminding you to always make the world a better place simply by living in it. And always remember to smile along the way. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. And now it's time for the thought for the day. And joining me today on the show for the thought for the day is Dr. Bill Austin. Bill, thank you so much for joining me for the thought for the day.
Oh, my pleasure. Always great to be here, Brent. Thank you.
Excellent. Honored to have you. And if you can go ahead with the thought for the day and share with us your thoughts on it.
This is from reading 3459-1. For as we forgive, we are forgiven. As we condemn others, we are ourselves condemned. Thus, in patience, condemn not, neither find fault, not condoning, not agreeing, but let thine own life so shine that others, seeing thy patience, knowing thy understanding, comprehending thy peace, may take hope. You know, if there's two concepts that I have trouble wrapping my head around, it's forgiveness and patience. Perhaps I just need to forgive myself for being so impatient. But Cayce talked about those a lot, you know, and he really stressed patience. And I think you can only get patience with a real deep knowing, and maybe that knowing comes from faith and trust, that there is a creator, that everything is in line, and that no matter how things appear, forgiveness will play a role in giving us time and patience to see the manifestation of God, of the universal creation.
That's great. And I couldn't agree more with the patience. Patience has been a thing that I've been working on for years, and it's a constant back and forth with myself and constant back and forth with the people around me, because it really is. They're kind of a mirror reflecting how patient you really are. And
Mm-hmm.
Casey mentioned something in another reading that is right in line with this, where he said that if you find yourself finding fault in others, you can always turn that back around, because you're in some way or another you're always finding that same thing within yourself if you're able to look hard enough. And for me, that's been it's resonated with me over the years. And I also like in this reading how he says, "Let thine own life shine so bright that others, seeing thy patience, knowing thy understanding, comprehending thy peace, may take hope." And I think it reminds me of the words of Gandhi, where he said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And Casey's readings are such an exemplary example of that, where
Yeah.
they just it's I struggled with this for years, where you get so excited when you stumble across spiritual truths and start pursuing, for me especially, the Casey readings, and finding out how many just incredible answers were contained within the readings.
Mm-hmm.
You get excited and you want to share them with other people, and you think, you hit this frustration where, why aren't they interested in it? Why don't they see the same truth that I see? And you realize that, we're not here to push things upon other people. We're not here to, just shout the good word from, the tops of, the rooftops. What we're here to do is that take those things that we're learning, digest them, and truly let them work through us, so that you really don't have to say a word to anybody. You just let your life be that light to where people are inspired just by your actions, just by being around you, seeing the way that you interact with other people. I think that speaks so much louder than any words that you can ever say. And that was something that I really got from the Cayce readings.
Right. In this particular reading, when he's talking about, don't condemn others, he's talking about don't judge others. And
Right.
this, and to do that, you have to have an understanding that we're all in the same boat here. We're all trying
Right.
to get back to our home. There may be different directions that people may be taking, and some people may be what appears to be further along. That's a maybe.
Right.
But we're all trying to get to the same place. And the best thing that we can do is help each other get there. And sometimes that means to be quiet, perhaps lend a helping hand or an encouraging thought to the individual.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's it. We've touched on this before, where just doing simple things, just being there, having your presence known to where you don't need to say anything. You just do exactly to others as you would have them do unto you. If you would want somebody to do you a favor, go out of your way to do something a little special for you, then you should, begin with yourself. Begin by doing those things yourself, and it's incredible the effect that you create by doing that.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me again for the thought for the day, Bill. Always,
My
always an
pleasure.
honor.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'll see you next week.
I look forward to it, Brent.
Excellent.